wanted to be transformed. The surgeon promised brilliance. But beneath the sterile light of the lab, something monstrous was born. The monster maker asks, what happens when we stop seeing people as people and start seeing them as projects? From the forgotten tales of science and shadow, this is Vault of Lost Tales.
It was a cold morning when a thin, well-dressed young man arrived at the door of a crumbling brick mansion buried in the forgotten part of the city. He checked a slip of paper in his hand, knocked once, then again, louder. When no one answered, he kicked the door with reckless purpose. The door creaked open, revealing an old man with a pale, sharp face. Without a word, he allowed the visitor inside and quickly bolted the door behind them. The hall was dim and smelled faintly of metal. They ascended a narrow staircase, the steps groaning underfoot. At the end of a long corridor, the old man pushed open a door, revealing a stark room. Wooden furniture, a single chair, and a window that faced nothing but a blank brick wall. The young man sat and laid $5,000 across his lap with eerie calm. The old man's face didn't change. He had seen this before, men seeking whispered promises. But this one was different. He wasn't desperate, he was already defeated. The air between them grew heavy with unspoken understanding. The old man's expression shifted from contempt to curiosity. The young man obeyed. Here was a body that wouldn't scream, wouldn't run, a willing subject for the kind of experiment whispered about only in nightmares. And in that silence, the surgeon's mind came alive. This wasn't tragedy. It was opportunity. The surgeon, once a respected man of science, had long since faded into myth. Some said he was dead. Others whispered he had crossed a line no doctor should. Now, seated across from him was Frederick Hayward, a young man offering not just money, but himself. The surgeon questioned him with cold precision. Name, age, family, friends. Frederick's answers were simple. No one would miss him. He had mailed a note to suggest he'd drowned in the river. By the time anyone searched, he'd be gone. The surgeon's pencil paused mid-air. Was there hesitation? Frederick gave a small, strange smile. He wasn't looking for death. He was looking for erasure, silence, oblivion. The surgeon's eyes gleamed, not with pity, but with possibility. Without a word, he crossed to a heavy door at the back of the room and opened it. The air changed. Inside was another chamber, a place that belonged to no sane practice of medicine. Cloth-draped tables, jars filled with murky liquid, shelves sagging under preserved forms, and in the center, beneath a filthy skylight, a single surgical table waited. Frederick followed, expression unreadable. The surgeon prepared a vile anesthetic, he explained. 10 minutes, no pain, a quiet ending. Frederick climbed onto the table without a word. He drank, whispered thanks, and closed his eyes. The surgeon watched the life fade from his face. Breath slowed, pulse faded. 8 minutes passed. A final whisper. Then silence. The surgeon stood, eyes never leaving the still form before him. The first step, he murmured. Not the last. 3 years passed. From the outside, the house remained unchanged. Rotting wood, boarded windows, the kind of place people crossed the street to avoid. Inside, everything had changed. The surgeon's wife no longer spoke much. Her eyes flicked toward shadows, her sleep broken by strange sounds, scraping, breathing, movements she could never explain. When questioned, the surgeon dismissed her fears. "Just rats," he said. "Dogs, maybe?" But she knew better. She had seen too much. Movements behind curtains, claw marks where furniture had never stood, the quiet moan of something that should not breathe. One night, during one of his rare absences, she found a key tucked away in a forgotten drawer. It opened another drawer, one she had always avoided. Inside were torn journal pages, scribbled in frantic haste. She stuffed them into her sleeves and fled into the night. A detective read the pages under lamplight. At first he scoffed, but as he read on, unease crept in. The notes spoke of removing the cerebrum, separating thought from reflex, creating a living body stripped of mind, but powered by monstrous strength. The detective arranged a raid. At midnight, his team entered through the skylight, but the lab was gone. Tables cleared, walls repainted. No bodies, no evidence. Just a rusted iron ring sunk into the floor. Its heavy chain snapped. Then a sound, wet and dragging, echoed from deep in the house. The surgeon's wife awoke with a gasp. She ran barefoot through the dark, heart pounding, candle flickering. She didn't get far. She collided with something massive and warm, something that should not exist. Her scream split the silence. And then, nothing. The scream tore through the house like shattered glass. It wasn't fear. It was final. The detective froze, then ran. Elsewhere, the surgeon jolted awake. Even before he fully rose, he knew. It had gotten out. Grabbing a lantern and the long surgical knife he kept by his bed for 3 years, he sprinted down the hall, muttering to himself like a man unraveling. The creature loomed ahead, massive, lumbering and slick with sweat and shadow. His wife lay crumpled beside it, lifeless. Rage overtook him. He screamed her name, screamed its name, demanded obedience. It turned. The thing had no face, just a brutal metal dome where a head should be, fused to its neck like a cruel crown. Tubes hissed as it breathed. The surgeon lunged, knife flashing. The blade struck flesh, but the creature barely reacted. It seized him. The detective, arriving seconds too late, shouted for the surgeon to stop. But the house was already burning. The lantern had shattered. Flames licked at the dry walls, growing fast, greedy. The surgeon and his creation grappled in silence, two beings bound by obsession and ruin. A man who thought he could control life, and the monster born from that arrogance. The detective and his men retreated as beams cracked and the house collapsed inward. By morning, it was ash. No bodies were found, no tools, no papers. Just rumors that something had lived, and maybe, just maybe, it still did.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below.